You want good food, you want a good time. VooDoo BBQ and Grill, 2740 Severn Avenue in Metairie is the place to be. Mojo sauce. They've got all kinds of sauces to sample here. Look at that. Torrance Small's already partaken, and all we did was watch and salivate. Well, we're going to get ours after it's over with, I can assure you, because it's great at VooDoo BBQ in Metairie on Severn Avenue. sportsNOLAtv, pleasant good evening all. Ken Trahan. And where else would you be on Halloween week but VooDoo BBQ and Grill, right? It's so nice that you've joined us this evening. And of course, as always, it's a pleasure to welcome our regulars who break it down, football at every level and beyond. First of all, Brian Allee-Walsh of sportsNOLA.com. Brian, good evening.
Good evening, Kenny. Great to be here. On a serious note, everybody in the Northeast, please take care, stay safe. Hurricane Sandy is going to be one of these monster storms, so we're thinking of you.
Indeed, we know all about it, and no question, our thoughts and prayers are with all in harm's way. Torrance Small, former New Orleans Saint, always a pleasure to have you with us as well.
Glad to be back, Kenny. Hey, man, I have watched a great game this weekend, and I'm not talking about the Saints. Rumble and Jesuit, great game.
Cool. Well, more on that coming up because we got a lot to tell you about that game, and you'll have a chance to see that game on WHNO. Stay tuned for that. Our special guest today is very special. He's a special friend, a good man, somebody I care deeply about, and somebody that Saints fans still care very deeply about because no one did it better than number 57. 13 years with the New Orleans Saints, went on to the 49ers, won a Super Bowl there, and just went about his business, consistent as could be. I didn't hurt him. No, that was a legal hit. He was just a nice guy. Look at that. That face and now this face. Pro Football Hall of Famer Rickey Jackson. Rickey.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, it's always great to be with you guys. I spent a lot of time with y'all last year, and I'm glad to be back.
Well, it's great to have you with us, too. And, of course, we'll talk about the New Orleans Saints and get Rickey's take on their loss to the Denver Broncos. And we'll get into our hot seat segment, which has a lot to do with the Saints defense, but there's a lot more too. Tulane with a big win. We'll show you highlights of that. LSU with their biggest game of the year against you-know-who coming up this Saturday night at Tiger Stadium. High school football, as Torrance alluded to, Rummel, Jesuit, and we'll have more on that, plus a lot of prep highlights of big things to come as we continue with Sports NOLA TV from VooDoo BBQ here on Severn Avenue, where the food's great and the company's better, on WHNO Channel 20. If you accept deja vu, if you believe in history repeating itself, then those stats certainly mean something because, yes, it happened before, losing by 20 or more points, once to Peyton Manning and the Colts to start the 2007 season, and the other time to a John Fox coach team when he was with the Carolina Panthers. I think there's something to that. Ken Trahan at VooDoo BBQ and Grill, 2740 Severn Avenue in Metairie on Sports NOLA TV. Let's talk about that Saints loss to the Broncos, 34-14. Brian, we'll start with you. And this was your worst nightmare realized in the sense that the Saints offense has given them a chance in every game. You knew they couldn't sustain that for all 16 games. And on this night, by not doing so, they got thoroughly beaten.
Yeah, you know, I think my opinion is that I didn't give Denver's defense enough credit. I think as poorly as the Saints played on offense, I think a lot of it can be laid at the feet of the Denver defense. I'm telling you, folks, this is a Super Bowl contending type team, and they're only going to get better. That's a really good defense, and I think they exposed the Saints offense. And Kenny, we've said it so many times on the set, is that they've asked Drew Brees to do so much, and at some point he can only do so much. And game after game after game, the burden is too great, and I think it showed last night.
Torrance, this was simply a case of the Denver defense playing faster than the Saints offense. They have more speed on their defense than the Saints have on offense, and that was evident throughout the course of this game.
Well, Ken, one reason why they play fast and they can play fast, simple fact is the Saints are predictable. They knew what Lance Moore was going to do on the 3rd and 1. He likes to run the quick out. They were all over this game. They were all over the Saints receivers this game, simply because we're too predictable. They know what we're running. Everybody's expected, and that's why Denver was able to play fast, and that's why they control the game.
Rickey, you watch Denver defensively, and certainly I'm sure you're a fan of young Von Miller. That kid can run. He can play as an outside linebacker. I know you appreciate watching a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a great talent, young player. But my whole thing was, like you said, the Saints was predictable. They kind of knew what we was going to do a lot. But, you change the game plan. Look like, to me, if you run those guys over and butt those guys in the mouth with the guys we got up front, that would have made a whole difference in the ball game. We kind of showed our hand that we was going to stick with Drew Brees and pass a whole lot. They never did have to worry about the run. But if we'd have went and just ran them over, butt them in the mouth, it would have been a whole different game.
Which brings me to another question, Rickey. Should the Saints run the ball more? Can they run the ball more, or are they simply not capable of doing it in your mind?
Well, you still got the same linemen. You got Knicks going up front, but you still got a lot of the same linemen. And you got a lot of young backs who they're not utilizing. I mean, you got two guys that can be running the ball that really haven't tied the ball all year long. So, sometimes you got to give those other backs a chance because they got a lot of good backs that they can be running.
Torrance, do they have running backs that are good enough to make plays in the NFL?
Oh, yes. Pierre Thomas is second to none. A great running back. We can keep him in on all downs, to be frank. He's great at catching as well as running the ball. Here's a guy averaging 5 yards a carry, guys. 5 yards a carry, and we're not giving him opportunity to run. Eight plays, 10 times a game is not going to get it. Sometimes it's the play selection. It's the way the plays are called, and we're not giving our running backs opportunity to get into the game.
When you spell them with Darren Sproles.
Exactly. Now you give them a change of direction. Hey, you saw what Denver had a nice little change of direction with their running backs.
Brian, from the standpoint of the Saints passing game, I watched this game and several things come into play. Pass protection wasn't as good as it needed to be, but more than that, the receivers were at fault because A, they weren't getting much separation at all, and B, they dropped the ball. The beautiful deep ball to Henderson, it's right through his hands. Jimmy Graham has a couple of drops in the game. There were a couple of other balls that could have been caught. Just really not a good performance by the Saints receiving corps.
I agree totally, Kenny. Their prescription for success, the recipe for success for Denver was blanket Marcus Colston, take him out of the game. They did it with Champ Bailey. Jimmy Graham is not 100%. You could see that. You could see what missing a lot of practice time did to him. Devery had a couple of drops, potential catches that he didn't take advantage of. And Lance Moore is what he is. So you take all that into account, they pretty much buckled up the Saints passing game.
Yeah, Rickey, you look at that Saints defense, and we'll talk more extensively about the defense a little bit later on, but Curtis Lofton is one guy that's played well for them. At least they made a good acquisition in Lofton.
Yeah, I mean, he came in and, he's an experienced ball player, but, you got to look at the whole defense as a whole. I mean, I'm used to smash mouth defense, and that ain't what these guys showing. I seen a couple of plays last night that receivers got the ball and they weren't even contested for us being tight or anything like that. Guys laid on the ground and guys jumped over them and just went as far as they wanted to go. So, got to get a lot tougher on the defense.
Torrance, a lot of people are asking, I'm getting emails and texts overnight and this morning, how can the Saints possibly be flat in this game? I didn't think they were flat. I just think they were out-prepared and outplayed.
And that's it in a nutshell. They were just outplayed. They were prepared. They played faster. Understand, the Saints have become too predictable. One, it was on defense. Now it's on offense as well. So this is a disaster for this season. For people to catch up with our offense, it's bad for us to have right now.
Ryan, I think you make a very good point earlier. Denver's a really good football team. Their record doesn't reflect it because of the schedule they've played. They've come together on offense. They're fast on defense, kicking games good, especially at altitude, and their schedule lightens up now. This is a dangerous team.
In their first 6 opponents, Kenny, was the toughest schedule in the league, and now it's the lightest schedule in the league. And I'm telling you, I think Denver is one of those teams that we'll hear from as the playoffs go, as they go deep into the playoffs. I think they're going to win the AFC West, and I think they're going to challenge for the AFC Championship. They're deep. It's a good team.
Rickey, I know you're a fan of Peyton Manning, and it's pretty obvious that he's still got it. His mental aspect has never been sharper. Physically, he may not have the the zip that he had 5 years ago, but he still has enough zip and he's still accurate enough to be able to make plays.
Well, I mean, he's a champion. You know, he got a heart of a champion, and that's what counts. You know, you don't worry about a guy like that. You know, if that's your only problem, you ain't got no problem. But I just look at him as how he carried the whole team and how everybody, you know, surround him, you know, play better. And that's what the whole thing is. He make the team have a lift and play better, and that's what you're looking for out of that position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you guys see on the sideline out there every possession, Peyton got his team together and told them, look, this is what happened, this is what we're going to go out and do the next time, and they went out and executed and it showed.
Yeah, they did. He played extremely well. I think he's got some pretty good players around him. They have a young player in Hillman that gives them a nice change of pace now at the running back spot with speed. And Brian, they got receivers that have size and their ability starting to show, and maybe it's because of the quarterback and the persons of Thomas and Decker in particular.
Well, you know, Peyton's one of those Hall of Fame quarterbacks. He's an elite player who makes everybody around him better. And you can see the progress he's made from game one. I mean, he continues to get better. They continue to have more confidence in each other. And again, I think this is a team that is going to get better as the season goes along.
Yeah, they really are, Ricky. And obviously, you know, having Peyton Manning there makes a difference. They clearly feel like they have the ability to win now on a big-time level.
Well, you know what they went out there? They went out and got a great center. I mean, they got a center that Tom Brady had, and this guy make a whole difference. Then they got some good linemen. I mean, one guy, 7'8", he haven't gave up a sack all year, so they know that Will Smith, you know, they wasn't going to beat him. They wasn't going to put a whole lot of pressure on the quarterback. So, you know, that made a big difference. He didn't take enough licks last night. We didn't knock him down enough to give him any pressure, you know what I mean? So after the first series, he kind of had his way the rest of the game.
We'll take a timeout. When we return, we'll take a trip around the NFL as Sports NOLA TV continues from VooDoo BBQ and Grill in Metairie. Our Sports NOLA trivia question of the evening. LSU will face top-ranked Alabama Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. Our question, how many times in its history has LSU defeated the #1 ranked team in the AP poll? You got 4 choices. Count them off. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they've done it. The question is, how many times? Think about it. We'll have the answer for you later on in the show. It's that week, LSU, Alabama. More on that coming up in just a bit. Tulane as well in prep as we march forward on Sports NOLA TV from VooDoo BBQ and Grill in Metairie, where the food's great. Come on by on Severn Avenue and partake. Well, the NFL had another interesting week of results, some strange games, and we'll take a look at the outcomes now and comment on some of the ones that really seem to matter the most. First of all, the Thursday night game. How about Tampa Bay rebounding from their loss to the Saints and taking the Vikings apart? Chicago, a field goal on the last play of the game to beat Carolina. Ugly game. Cleveland beat San Diego by 1. Detroit rallies and beat Seattle and kept their season hopes alive. Then it was Green Bay taking care of Jacksonville as they continue to win. Miami, after a very tumultuous week of exchanges between players, started by Reggie Bush, taking apart the Jets 30-9 as Tebow far behind. Atlanta stays unbeaten, whipping the Eagles 30-17. Eagles come to New Orleans this week. Who will the quarterback be? Pittsburgh handled Washington and shut down RG3. New England over at Wembley Stadium in England gave up 7 to start the game, scored 45 straight. Tennessee losing to Indianapolis. How about the Colts at 4-3 with Andrew Luck at quarterback? Oakland beats hapless Kansas City. Only team the Chiefs could beat was the Saints. And the Giants, in a very strange game, beat Dallas by a game of inches, I might add, 29-24. And some NFL results to look at from yesterday. Okay, we always like to break it down and talk about some of the more meaningful results. Brian, first and foremost, what stuck out in your mind from this past weekend?
2 things, Kenny. The same Jamal Charles, who accumulated 288 total yards against the Saints, had 10 total yards against Oakland.
What are you trying to say, Brian?
We will address that situation momentarily. And then the other game, of course, was Atlanta went into Lincoln Field and did a number on Philadelphia, did it rather easily in bad weather. So there's that indoor team coming out and playing in the elements and really taking it to Philadelphia.
Torrance, what did you see that caught your attention?
I would say San Diego and Cleveland. San Diego, what is wrong with them? I don't understand. You've been making a lot of changes, a lot of things been going on within the organization. Maybe it's time for a new coach. I don't know.
And the quarterback maybe not what he used to be either.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the quarterback or the coach. Maybe so.
Rickey, what about you? What did you see that was pretty interesting this past weekend?
Well, my whole thing was looking at my home team, knowing that, we don't have our great coach that everybody, missing. I'm missing, all the fans missing. But our defense more concerned me than anything else. I think that we need to go back to basics, sink football, smash them in the mouth. Every man get a man, and that's what they got to do. They got to get everybody got to get a man and take care of their man, and that's what we're not doing.
Well, I think a couple of things from this past weekend certainly were interesting. First of all, Detroit really keeping their season alive by rallying past Seattle. Detroit's good on offense, and you saw what they're capable of doing this year. Rough start this year. Their division's better, but I think that win can really get them going. And Seattle, it seems like every game they play is down to the wire. It's pretty interesting the way their games have developed all season long. And then the Colts, as I mentioned, at 4-3, it just goes to show you that they knew what they were doing. Peyton Manning was incredible. He's where he needs to be now with a team that can win now. But they got themselves a franchise quarterback, a tremendous young leader, and it's showing. They're 4-3 coming off of a horrendous year a year ago. So those would be my impressions of this past weekend. Let's take a look at standings in the NFC South. And, of course, from the Saints' perspective, not much to look at here. The Saints dropped back into third place after Tampa Bay won. Falcons have pretty much already won the division. Saints are teetering on the edge of being out of it. Philadelphia comes to town this week. Falcons get Dallas. Tampa Bay travels west. And the Panthers will be at Washington. Brian, the Panthers lost a tough game. Buccaneers with a good win. So a little bit of everything in this division.
Yeah, we didn't even mention Tampa's win up at Minnesota. That was a big win for them. And it's funny that nobody on the panel mentioned the Giants-Cowboys game yesterday, which had one of the greatest finishes we've seen this season. The Giants jumped out 23-0.
Yes.
Dallas came back, led 24-23, and then ends up losing 29-24. I mean, it was just a great finish. And boy, I tell you what, two little fingers out of bounds.
Yeah. Somehow the good teams make their own luck and they win those games. And the teams that don't know how to win lose them. And Dallas does not know how to win. Torrance?
Well, right now in this division, we playing for draft picks. Can you say Clowney, the guy from South Carolina? Can the Saints go out and get him? We keep at this tempo that we have right now, we will have a high draft pick, and we will have an opportunity to get him if we stay on track.
Rickey, it looks like that this division is going to produce just one playoff team this year, the way things are looking right now.
Yeah, I mean, and right now, I think that, we got a great quarterback, and we got to get some more players around him. Like Terrence say, with the record that we're going to have, we're going to be able to get some high draft pick, but that's not the, only thing. We need a lot of good players, not just one.
No, the Saints, listen, Sean Payton would make a difference. We've said that all along. There's no question that he would have made a difference in at least one of the games that they lost already, and maybe two based upon the way these games unfolded, frankly. But that's not the reason the Saints are where they are. They're where they are because they're just not very good, especially on defense. And if you can't run the ball, then you're not all that good on offense either over the long haul, because people can make adjustments, and people that can run and really play on the defensive side can take away a lot of the things that you do. So, Brian, I think Coach Payton, as Rickey alluded to, would have made a difference. He's elite, but I don't think it would have made a difference about them being a threat to win anything this year.
No, and I think what Denver did, I think in last night's game, it just showed how far the Saints do have to come from a personnel standpoint at certain spots. And, when you've got John Fox, who's been a thorn in the Saints' side, was during his days at Carolina. Peyton Manning is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Jack Del Rio is an outstanding coordinator. And they've got good young players on defense, and I think that's why they got beat by 20 points.
Yes. The one thing that has to change are the players. We don't have the players. We can get ready, we can get our mind set, we can talk the tough talk, we can do all those things. Until the talent get here to help out, it's going to be more of the same.
All right, well, that's going to lead us into our next segment, because our hot seat segment is coming up next, and we'll put Brian Allee-Walsh on the hot seat, and we're going to talk about defense, scheme versus players, players versus scheme. Which one is it? Is it both? Is it neither? Think about it. That's what's next as we continue with Sports NOLA TV from VooDoo BBQ and Grill, 2740 Severn in Metairie. Our sports NOLA trivia question once more. LSU faces top-ranked Alabama Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. How many times in its history has LSU defeated the number 1 ranked team in the Associated Press poll? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? And the answer is twice. The Tigers, 2-9-1 all-time against the AP number 1 teams, beat Florida back in 1997. Remember Kevin Falk, all eyes on 3. And then Ohio State in 2008 when the Tigers took care of the Buckeyes in the national championship game. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv from VooDoo BBQ and Grill, 2740 Severn Avenue in Metairie, where the food is superb. Try all of the sauces. You simply cannot go wrong. It is time now for our hot seat segment where we put Brian Allee-Walsh on the hot seat with a topic that clearly is trending. And the Saints defense, that's a hot topic. It's clearly trending. And our topic, Brian, is the Saints defense, or should I say, are the Saints defensive woes a result of scheme or players? Is one more responsible than the other? Are they both responsible? The floor is yours.
Thank you, as always, Kenny, my esteemed colleagues. This is an easy question. It's both. It's a combination of Spagnuolo's philosophy, his scheme, and players that do not fit his philosophy and scheme. But I also think that you've got some declining athletes on defense that they're going to have during the offseason. There's not time right now. The trading deadline is Tuesday, tomorrow, and they're not moving anybody, so they're going to have to wait till the offseason to make some radical changes. Along the defensive front, they're going to have to upgrade the linebacking core. And, for the life of me, I still can't understand why the back end can't do its job better. But this is generally the same group, all right, that performed well under Greg Williams. So that's why I say that Spagnuolo is at fault here as well. I think you've got to tweak your scheme, your philosophy to fit your personnel, and maybe that isn't being done enough, done at all. But there's definitely a problem, and they're going to have to make some changes during the offseason. So in answer to your question succinctly, is that it's a little bit of both, Kenny.
Well, I'm gonna go with Ken. Talent. We're lacking talent. Now he said the gray one here to my left talks about Greg Williams. We have the same team. No, it's a different team. We're missing some players. We're missing some veteran leadership back there. Matter of fact, we're missing leadership back there. I think Rickey said it early. We can't go one-on-one and just win. It's just a matter of just going one-on-one and winning. Now, up front, if we can get some pressure just up front, we don't have enough talent up front just to put some pressure on the quarterback that can help a lack of talent in the defensive back. If we had a front that can put some pressure on the quarterback, it'll help those defensive backs back there that's lacking and help those safeties that can't catch or produce interceptions. Right now, I think our most important part is not the linebacker, as Brian said. I think it's our front four. Our front four needs to get pressure and need to be able to get it one-on-one. We cannot beat anybody one-on-one. We have nobody that demands a double team. We have nobody that they have to scheme for. They don't have to scheme for anybody. They play one-on-one and they're beating us. And right now, we just don't have the talent or the toughness to be able to do it.
And my whole thing is, like Torrance saying, football comes down to every man got to beat their man sooner or later. And we don't have that. You can see where we outman. But, you go back to the Saints a year or two ago, they had a lot of leadership on defense and guys was a little younger. And now they're trying to go with guys that really is not fast, really is not tough, and making a big difference. Look at the secondary. They got 2 or 3 new guys back there, and they're young guys. So, the inexperience, and that's what they're missing. They're missing a lot of experienced guys. You see those other teams, most guys got experience back there. And the young guys who they got come in, fill in, can really play football. And that's what we're missing. So I think Coach doing a great job of what he got to work with. But, you can't look at the coach or the scheme or anything right now. I think he's doing the best with what he got to work with.
Well, it's going to be a lot of, they're not going to make a change with Steve Spagnuolo. He's a good coach. He's shown it throughout the years. But they're going to have to make some personnel changes. You can't sit pat. because this season likely isn't going to get any better. So they're going to have to make some changes via the draft, okay, and via free agency. And they're going to have to go out and they spent money on offense last year. They're going to have to spend some money in the right places on the right people on the defensive side of the ball to make it a better product.
What money they spent on offense last year besides Drew Brees?
Well, that's what I mean. They brought back Marcus Colston. I mean, that's all you can do.
Yeah, but
you know?
we talked about that. We talked about that. These guys here they are spending all the money on offense, and you haven't did anything for defense. And here we have plenty holes in the defense. Plenty holes that need to be addressed.
If you look at the draft now, there's a lot of number ones on that defense.
Time to render a judgment. Brian, you're right. There are number ones on that defense. They've made investments. They've simply made bad investments because these players can't play. With regard to scheme versus players, it is both. It's a combination of both. But that's why, as an organization, you have to make up your mind which way you are going. You signed Roman Harper to a long-term contract under a different scheme, under the scheme of Greg Williams, where Roman Harper was an attacker and led this team in sacks with 7.5. That's what he can do. What he cannot do is cover in space. Everyone knows that. It's obvious. And in this scheme, if that's what he's going to be doing, man, is he really worth that long-term deal? You got to make up your mind which way you're going to go. With regard to other players, I agree with what's been said. You have some aging players that have slowed down and simply aren't as good as they used to be. They don't need to be named. They're pretty obvious. Then you have a free safety, Malcolm Jenkins, who did make a great hustle play in the game a week ago against Tampa Bay, but frankly, when else has he made a play? Clearly, he is not worth the investment they've made in him, and clearly he's not making any plays in this scheme that matter. You look up front, they've tried it with veteran players. They plug in veteran players, it seems, every year on that defensive line. Who has really worked out? Now they're down to playing the younger players up front to see what they can get out of them because the veteran players aren't performing. Linebacker's been a conundrum for years. They simply haven't been able to solve the problem at outside linebacker for several years. So they tried Jonathan Vilma, who's clearly rusty, clearly a bit older, and clearly not comfortable where he's playing. But why not? Because you got to play your best players to give yourself any chance. So Steve Spagnuolo didn't become a bad coach overnight. He simply had the right players for his scheme in New York. He doesn't have the right players for his scheme here. So as an organization, you got to make up your mind. If you don't like this scheme, then hire a new coach. If you want to try this scheme moving forward, get some players that can play it. And as Rickey said, win some individual battles. It really comes down to that. It's really that simple. When we return in just a moment, we'll talk about LSU, Alabama, Tulane with a big win. Prep football and a big game there. So much more to come. So many things to talk about. So many ribs to eat here at VooDoo BBQ and Grill as we continue on sportsNOLAtv on WHNO Channel 20. Trending now at sportsNOLA.com, best site on the web. Giants Broncos analysis, college football recaps from this past weekend, the most complete prep coverage you'll find anywhere in Louisiana, and of course, our first NBC video updates, including video from the Greater New Orleans Quarterback Club from earlier today. That's all at sportsNOLA.com, best site on the web. Go there, enjoy it, and make sure that you sample a lot of the product, make a lot of clicks, right? We like it when you click. Ken Trahan from VooDoo BBQ and Grill on Severn Avenue in Metairie. It's a big week. It's LSU Alabama week, and anytime that happens, it involves tremendous discussion and major implications nationally. Alabama #1, LSU 5 right now, and Bama leads the nation in every major defensive category. LSU with a winning record against Alabama most recently, and of course 3 overtime games included. So tremendous rivalry. Most people still have the taste from that national championship game in their mouths, and obviously that is not indicative of the kind of rivalry this has been. There have been some great games, some extremely hard-hitting games, and obviously, Brian, we expect this to be another one of those.
Absolutely. You know, I noticed the graphic earlier where the LSU had beaten 2 #1s. I think it's going to stay at 2 #1s. I watched Alabama against Mississippi State. They beat an unbeaten Mississippi State team, which is, I think, it's kind of a fraud to be 7-0 at that time. But they beat them handily. And I would think that if they are not able to stop the run, that is LSU cannot stop the run, they're going to have a long day in Death Valley.
Well, they run it well. They set up play action like this. What a perfect throw. And they got a quarterback that's playing lights out in A.J. Metairie, Torrance.
Oh, yeah. A.J. hasn't thrown an interception, I don't think, yet, has he?
No.
And playing great balance on offense and playing a hell of on defense. I mean, just playing tremendous ball right now.
Yeah, they do everything well, Ricky. That's a football team that I know you certainly appreciate by the way they play defense.
Well, you know, they play great defense, and that's one thing about it. And they got the best coach in football. So, I mean, if LSU coaches can stand up to Nick, I think it'll be a better ball game because LSU got a lot of talent over there. I think they got just as much talent as Alabama got. They got great running backs. They got a decent quarterback. They got good receivers. So I think they match up well with them. They're going to come down to who coached the best.
Jeremy Hill needs to play more for LSU. He's a difference maker, and Zach Mettenberger is going to have to make plays, Brian.
I'll tell you what, Kenny, you hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned is that we've said that Zach doesn't have to necessarily win games. You know what? He may have to win game Saturday night. He's going to have to play well, I think, for LSU to beat Bama.
Tigers with a lot of options offensively in the running back spot, as we talked about, but their defense really is what makes them go. They're very athletic. They run so well, as you can see right there. You go east and west against LSU, you got problems. Meanwhile, LSU needs to get the ball east and west offensively.
Yeah, one thing about LSU, the defense know how to make adjustments when things are not going their way. They know how to adjust and come back and make plays. Offensively, the thing I want to see is the preparation for the offense this game. Notice that when they played for the national championship, they did not adjust well to Alabama. They were not prepared for Alabama. I want to see, having an off week, what they come out with this Saturday.
Well, I'm pretty sure, Brian, they're going to do something a lot different than they did in the Superdome not too long ago.
You know what? I think it's safe to say I don't think field goals are going to win this game like they did last year. When LSU is down inside the red zone, they're going to have to score touchdowns and not field goals.
Well, we'll see if they get the opportunity to do so and give themselves a chance to win this football game, because they're going to have to play great defense and play mistake-free offense to have a chance to win. Let's take a look at the current BCS standings following this past weekend's action. Alabama, of course, on top. Kansas State up to number 2. Notre Dame, are they for real? They're starting to look like it. Oregon is 4. LSU is up to 5. How about Georgia beating Florida, dropping the Gators to 7. South Carolina, sad story there with Marcus Lattimore getting hurt. And then Florida State 9. Louisville, that's right, Louisville into the top 10 at number 10. Ricky, you look at some of those schools, you got traditional powers, you got some that maybe aren't so much in the way of traditional, like a Louisville, but certainly at the top you got good teams.
Well, you know the most interesting thing about that, Notre Dame number 3, and they play my school, University of Pittsburgh this weekend.
There you go.
So
let's see what
we're
happens
looking
with
for
that
upset
game.
city right there, you know.
Go Panthers, right? The Tulane Green Wave
We got upset.
got their second win. Tulane has played demonstratively better since Ryan Griffin returned. 55-45 shootout win over the Blazers. Speaking of Ryan Griffin, look at this. School record, 5 touchdown passes. He was absolutely brilliant in this game. And by the way, he's been named Conference USA Offensive Player of the Week. This kid, boy, it's a shame he's had the career he's had with injuries and the lack of personnel, because when you give him time to throw and you give him a little bit of talent around him, he's pretty good, Brian.
I agree, and you know what? He, all those records, they're 2-2 in Coosa. They won 2 of their last 3. Congratulations to Curtis Johnson. It just goes to show what's having a good veteran leader under center can do for you.
Yeah, just good execution, makes good reads, Torrance, and hits guys in time. The timing is everything.
Yes, they missed this guy when he went down early in the season, but I'm glad that he's back. Give the team some type of inspiration, and hopefully they can finish this season off strong. And this guy will be leaving, but they have another young man coming from Jesuit that's coming in. That's going to be superb for them, I think.
And I know you're happy for Tulane, Ricky, and you're happy for Curtis Johnson. And as a defensive guy, you couldn't have standed watching those points, right?
No, just looking at the quarterback. I mean, he got a big upside for the NFL, and that's what I look at. I look at the way his arm, I look at the way he prepared, and he hit the receivers quick, and that's what I like about him.
High school football, of course, a major passion of ours and part of our coverage each and every week here on WHNO across the board here on our show on sportsNOLAtv, on our Recruiting Insider show, and of course with the many games in the first NBC Prep Football Showcase that we show. And this past weekend, big game between number 1 Rummel and number 5 Jesuit, and that game, of course, will be on WHNO television, and you want to see that, but you talk about good players and good teams, you'll have a chance to see that as we continue with our series, the first NBC Prep Football Showcase. So we'll see Rummel and Jesuit coming up this weekend. Quite a matchup, and a lot of good matchups coming up in Prep as well. And let's take a look now at our Prep Player of the Week. It comes from that game, and that's Damian Williams, the brilliant senior quarterback for Archbishop Rummel. 6'1", 215, he's all of that. 25 carries, 151 yards, 3 touchdowns, 9 of 14 passing, 115 yards, and another touchdown. And he was the difference. As Wade Kaiser says, Rummel's a great team, and what makes them great is number 8, Damian Williams. Torrance, you saw that, so you know something about that.
Great game. The team had great balance, offense, defense. Number 66 on their defense showed me a lot of
Stanley Franklin, yeah, he's
yes,
a junior.
he was a great player, but too much in number 8.
Rickey knows that guy, Keith Fulton. He knows quite a few of those Rummel players who are awfully good football players and basketball players.
Yeah, man, they got a lot of good talent over there.
They do.
Were you involved in the recruiting process over there? Hey, Kenny, can we do a shout out to Coach Salta Formaggio for their big win? He's just a big win over
We're going to do that, but you're cheating ahead on us here, so that's okay.
Sorry.
Nice
But I'll
try,
tell you
nonetheless. It's okay, but as a result, Rummel remains number 1 in the state in the polls, number 1 in their power points, and if they win this week, well, clearly they're going to be the number 1 seed. Jesuit will get a high seed too. They're a good team. So now, what that brings us to is this, the first NBC Prep Football Showcase. You'll be able to see this game, Jesuit and Rummel, tomorrow night, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. on WHNOtv Channel 20. You will want to watch because you'll see Tanner Lee, who's going to Tulane. You'll see Sethan Carter, who's a big-time player at Rummel, number 80, by the way. Patrick Clibert, their big offensive lineman, 6'8", 312, Division I player. And, of course, Damian Williams, among others, for the Raiders. So you'll want to watch that at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night. And as for Prep Football Notes, Brian gets ahead of us. Rummel and the other top-ranked teams in the state all win. Curtis, of course, sitting it out, but they'll be back after they had an easy game with Clark to play South Plaquemine this week. East Jefferson with a big rally to beat St. Augustine in a thriller on Friday night at Joe Yenny Stadium. Big ones this week, the Battle of the Neighborhood at Berman Stadium. Edna Carr unbeaten, no Perry Walker, once beaten. Holy Cross in East Jefferson, 10-4A district championship on stake. And as I mentioned, Curtis and South Plaquemine district 9-2A title is at stake. All good games. Take your pick. Go to one of them. I'm quite sure that you'll enjoy it because the prep football is superb. And this is the final week of the regular season ahead of the state playoffs where it really gets fun. And again, we encourage you to get out and see these games and to continue to watch our first NBC Prep Football Showcase of great teams and great players all across South Louisiana here on WHNO-TV. And of course, read about all these players, all the teams, the polls, and beyond at sportsNOLA.com each and every day with our bevy of outstanding prep football contributors. We'll take a time out here and we'll take a look at what's to come for the New Orleans Saints when we continue on sportsNOLA TV. You want good chicken, you want good ribs, you want good beef, you want good sausage, you want good food, you want a good atmosphere. VooDoo BBQ and Grill, 2740 Severn in Metairie is the place to go. That's where we're at. We love being here. We thank VooDoo BBQ and Grill for their support, and we encourage you to check them out because I'm quite sure you will enjoy everything you have at VooDoo BBQ and Grill. No doubt about that. During November each year, Movember is responsible for the sprouting of mustaches on thousands of men's faces in the United States and around the world. With their mows, these men raise vital awareness and funds for men's health issues, specifically prostate and testicular cancer initiatives. Starting November 1st, clean shaven for the rest of the month, these selfless and generous men, known as Mo Bros, groom, trim, and wax their way into the annals of fine mustachery. Mo Bros raise funds by seeking out sponsorship for their Mo growing efforts. WHNO and sportsNOLATV's producer Adam Bandera is leading a team of brave Mo Bros to become walking, talking billboards for the 30 days of November. Through their actions and words, they raise awareness by prompting private and public conversation around the often ignored issue of men's health. Please support the cause. Visit mobro.co/sportsNOLA to make a donation. I wore a mustache for 10 years because I was courting my wife and she liked mustaches. I got her, I shaved it off. Although I think about growing it back. I challenge you, Brian Allee-Walsh. to shave that beard, shave that mustache, and grow it back for Mo Bros, for Men's Health.
Oh.
He's speechless. He has no retort. He can't respond. Not good, huh? I think he's afraid. I think he's afraid about what color would come out if he did that. You know what I mean?
You wouldn't recognize me, believe me.
It's all
Maybe
good.
that's why I should do it.
Maybe so. All right, the Saints are at home against the Eagles next time around. That's another primetime game. I'm sure the networks right now are saying, man, why did we get stuck with this, right? Eagles are average. They're thinking about making a quarterback change, Brian. So what about the Saints and the Eagles?
Nick Foles could step in, but I'll tell you what, Andy Reid, he's got to worry about keeping a job there. I still think they're going to go with Michael Vick. And Hurricane Sandy could end up messing up their practice preparation.
And Andy Reid's trying to save a job. Change defensive coordinators. What else can he change? Quarterbacks.
Well, the one thing he did wrong when he brought Juan in as the defensive coordinator. Here's a guy that was an offensive line coach. He made a defensive coordinator. I think that was his downfall right there.
Rickey, the Saints and Eagles. Can the Saints win this game?
The Saints can win the game. I mean, anytime.
But do you think they will win the game?
Yeah, I think they will. Anytime you got Drew Brees, you got a chance to win.
Yeah, especially when they're playing at home, in the Dome, coming off of a loss in prime time. They'll be motivated, and I think they'll play better. And I do think they'll win the game. I think they're a better team at this stage, although you would never know that based upon what you saw this past weekend, because they're not very good. And I know saying they're better than someone is a large leap of faith, but we'll see. Let's take a look at the upcoming Saints schedule, which includes the Eagles game on this coming Sunday. Then the Atlanta Falcons on November 11th, and that's an unbeaten team. Then it's a long trip to Oakland. That won't be easy. Then a very good San Francisco team coming in. Certainly doesn't get any easier. It's pretty tough moving forward, but the Saints will have to play it. Rickey Jackson, what a distinct pleasure having you here, my friend. It's always a blessing. God bless you and your family, my friend. Great to see Rickey here. And listen, come back anytime.
Yeah, well, I dropped by just to let Brian see the ring. This is the first thing, Hall of Fame ring, and I know that Brian wanted to see this, so I had to make sure I dropped by and let him see it.
That's right.
I had to let him
Thank you, Rickey. And thank you, Brian, and thank you, Torrance. Brian's trying to steal the ring. I'm going to steal a VooDoo BBQ iced tea. God bless you one and all. So long.